Hello, people of the internet. This is MandKXbox, and today I'm bringing you a slightly updated, well, I say updated, more recent version of a Jg.Pz E-100 review that I did a while ago. However, this time it's not on the test server; it's on the live server. If you may or may not have been able to notice that, I'm not too sure what's up with my frames. They should be a little bit better than this. Oh well. Anyway, on with the review. So, the Jg.Pz E-100, aka the Rate Panzer. Based off the chassis of the E-100, as you may be able to tell, as most of the Tier 10 tanks in the German tech tree seems to be. Well, I say most of them. A few are. You know, the E-100 of course, the Waffenträger Auf E-100, GW E-100, and that's probably about it, so now I look a bit silly. Or is it? Yeah, that's about it. Anyway, so I'll proceed normally with it, and when I get to the armour, I'll jump into Tank Inspector. Now, I'm not too sure how well or how badly it's going to work, because it seems to crash on my computer a lot, because it doesn't seem to like my computer for whatever reason. But yeah, we'll jump into that. I mean, just to give you like a quick idea as to what it's like. This is a game that I literally just played. 6,055 damage. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, so on with the review. So it has a fairly standard 2,200 hit points. I say fairly standard. It seems to have more than a few Tier 10 heavies. Well, certainly more than the IS-7. I know that for a fact. Not more than the mouse. I know. E-100, that's got 2,700, so we'll just not talk about that. Well, actually no, let's compare it to some of the other TDs. Foch 155 has 1,850, so more than that. Chinese don't have any. What am I talking about? FV215B has 2,000 on the dot, I think it does. That's good. I'm pretty sure the mobile bunker... Oh no, it's got more than the mobile bunker, and I know its brother has the exact same. Oh no, it doesn't. It has 50 hit points less. Anyway, so it's got the most hit points out of all of the Tier 10 tank destroyers in the game. Again, I probably should have looked this up beforehand, but you know, hey ho, I'm never prepared. This thing is an absolute monster, weighing in at 134.34 tons. It is heavy, really heavy, which means that depending on what you're going to ram into, this tank is very good for ramming, and it's even funnier when people try and ram into you. I tried something quite a while ago. I think Ben got into his T2 light. I sat here on my Jg.Pz E-100. He rammed into me with his T2 light and killed himself on me. I wasn't moving, and did no damage to me whatsoever. So it is an absolute monster. It weighs an absolute ton. With a 1,200 horsepower engine, I'm not sure what the I forgot what it's called now. Yeah, you know what I mean. This thing. I'm not gonna say engine to horsepower again because it's not horsepower to weight ratio, or I don't know what it is, but you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of all right, but not brilliant. So it kind of gets up to maybe 20-25 kilometers an hour, or it'll get up to about 25 kilometers an hour to a reasonable speed, if you wish, at a reasonable rate. It might take you 5-6 seconds to get there, 5-6-7 seconds to get there, depending on what kind of incline you're driving on, what kind of terrain you're driving on, and then it seems to take a while to get to 30. You'll see 30 going downhill and past 30 going downhill, maybe. But what you need to know is this thing is not a quick tank. You know, this is not this is not a tank like the Foch 155, or I suppose for the ISU, for that matter. I mean, the ISU is not mobile, but it's quick. It'll go fast. Well, it can go fast. Anyway, so it's got a 20 degrees per second traverse speed, which means that it's not a quick traverse speed. If a medium tank can get up close to you, then it will. If they know what they're doing, first of all, they'll track you. And that's what I tend to do if I'm going up against a TD. I'll track them first on the move, then go around their side. But if they don't know what they're doing, and you manage to get yourself up against a wall, then they're not going to have a very good day. So I'll leave the armour out for a second now, mostly because I'll go over that in Tank Inspector. Gun traverse 26 degrees per second. Now, the gun. This is the thing on the Jg.Pz E-100 that everybody fears. If you see one of these things in a game, and then you're about to go around a corner and you see this thing pop up on your minimap, you don't want to go around that corner. This is probably one of the biggest deterrents in the game, along with maybe the FV215B's 183mm gun. This 170mm gun is one of the biggest deterrents that you will ever face in a game, and it works very well. There will be the odd, you know, retard that decides, actually, you know what, I'm going to go pop around the corner, then you shave off 1,000 hit points, and they go whimpering back to their parents. Anyway, so if I look a bit more in depth, so it's a 170mm gun, second biggest gun, not excluding artillery, because artillery is not a tank really. It doesn't go around. Anyway, excluding artillery, it's the second biggest gun in the game. Of course, the biggest being the 183mm that the FV has. 2.33 rounds per minute. Now, you might think that's a bit slow, but it's going to have to be a bit slow. And the reason for that is because you do 299mm of penetration with AP and 1050 average damage. It is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely 100% ridiculous. There will be some games where you'll pull the trigger, however, the gun is a lot like the ISU's gun, and I'll get onto that in a second. So it has 0.35 accuracy, which is, going with the standard German thing of good accuracy guns. Aiming time 2.7 seconds, it's alright, but it's not amazing, There will be times when you thought, boy, I wish I could have aimed just a tad bit faster, but it gets the job done. Anyway, so what I was saying about it's kind of like the ISU's gun in the sense that there will be times when you are aiming at the side of a tank, for example. So let's put this into perspective. So you've got the side of a Batchat or an AMX 1390, or in the example that I have from this game, well, not this game that I'm going to show you, but the game I just played, the side of an AMX 1375, 3 tiers below. So you're aiming at him, completely 100% sure that it's going to hit him. You pull the trigger. Oh, you just blew his tracks off. Wait, what? You have 299mm of penetration on the side of a French tank that's made of paper, and you only blew his tracks off. Huh. Let's put this into perspective again. So you're shooting at the side, or you're shooting at a very thinly armoured target from, I don't know, maybe 200, 300 metres away. So granted, that's not going to be 299mm of penetration, because, AP loses penetration over distance, but not terribly large amounts of penetration. So pull the trigger, side of a tank, that one bounced. Okay, let's put this into perspective again. You've got the side of maybe, I don't know, let's say, just for argument's sake, you've got the side of a T-28 prototype. Like this. Okay, so your aiming circle covers this entire area here. This part here is the only area that is not covered by the tank. You pull the trigger and the shot goes straight through there. He turns around, because you only have like 100 hit points left, and this isn't the 120mm, by the way. He turns around, aims at your low plate, pulls the trigger on the 128mm, and you die. And you start cursing, and you start raging, and you start getting pissed off. This gun trolls you just as much as you troll other people with it, just like the ISU 152's 152mm BL-10 trolls other people just as much as it trolls you. So you need to be mindful about this, and it could just be me being an idiot and not well aiming my shots, but there have been noticeable times when you think, that should have penetrated, why didn't it penetrate? I have 299mm of penetration and it bounced off the side or the rear of a tank. So yeah, you tend to get quite pissed off. It has a fairly standard tier 10 view range of 400 meters, and who gives a fuck about the signal range unless you're driving a light tank or an artillery, I suppose. But 720 meter signal range is perfectly fine. Anyway, I'm going to stop the recording here for a second, jump into Tank Inspector, and see what the armour on this thing is like. Okay, so Tank Inspector refused to cooperate, but I did manage to salvage a few bits of data from here. So this is actually, the armour is a lot more deceiving than you might think. Wargaming tend to do this with a lot of tanks, like the Jagd. That says it has, 150mm or 250mm of frontal upper plate armor. That only counted for the not the slope, the bit that would be the most obvious part, but the tiny little bit of armor next to the gun. That was the part that they were talking about. However, that doesn't seem to be the case with the Jagdpanzer E-100. The Jagdpanzer E-100, when it says 200mm of frontal armor, this is 200mm of frontal armor. However, the neat thing about Tank Inspector allowed me to see that shooting straight on like this frontal plate is actually 313mm of armor. And depending on what angle you shoot this at, it can be anywhere between 233mm to 260 something millimeters of armor. Now here's the interesting part. This bit up here, if this bit was straight, like, vertical 90 degrees, which is not, this would actually be 250mm of armor. I thought that was a bit weird. Anyway, so in reality, because of the slope, it doesn't add a terribly large amount. It only goes up to maybe 260, 270mm of armor. Which is why, if you're on a Jagdpanzer E-100, and you get up close and personal, shooting them here, on level ground of course, because if you're like this, it's going to be a lot harder to penetrate, because you increase the angle if you wish. But if you're on straight and level ground, if you're on a Jagdpanzer E-100, or a tier 10 tank destroyer, for that matter, and you shoot it here, of course if you can't shoot the lower plate, if you can shoot the lower plate, hit the lower plate, but if you can, shoot here or here. If that's the only thing you can shoot at. Now, the commander's port at the top here, or this little machine gun port, I have been shot and penetrated. Pardon me. Shot and penetrated here a couple of times. That's something I wouldn't really worry about too much, but just be aware of it, that if you're behind cover and you're giving somebody enough time to aim at this, and they can hit it and they can penetrate it, they will shoot it and they will do damage to your tank. That is a weak spot. A very small, hard to hit weak spot, but it is a weak spot. So if you're in a tank with a lot of penetration and you can't hit the lower plate, shoot here or here. If you're in any other tank, shoot. Of course, if you're in tier 10 tank destroyer and you can't hit the lower plate, shoot there, or there. But here is probably the safer option. But if you can't hit these reliably, hit this. And most of the time you would be able to. But if you're in any other tank, I would always go for the lower plate. Always go for the lower plate on a Jagdpanzer E-100, because 9 times out of 10 you'll penetrate. If he's angled like this, you can penetrate it, but you have to bear in mind that if a Jagdpanzer E-100 is angled like this, he's got 120mm of side armor, so that's angled as well. I didn't actually check what that would be, but that's angled, this is angled, so never shoot here. Regardless, never shoot here. Unless you're firing some ridiculous premium ammo. Go for here, maybe, but don't go for this. If he's angled like this, don't shoot here, because he'll just bounce. Shoot here if you have to. Just bear in mind there is a slight slope to it, so that's slightly more than 120mm. The tracks eat shots like you would not believe. It really, really does. And surprisingly, there's actually more armour on the back of the tank than there is on the front. No, on the side even. And there's actually an angle here. So if somebody's stupid enough to decide to shoot you here and not up here, where it's perfectly nice and flat, you can pull off a couple of bounces if you manage to angle your tank, because that is 150mm of armour that you're angling, and it's already angled. But I wouldn't rely on it. It does happen sometimes, and that's something to be aware of. Anyway, so I've got my standard little set out like I do for every single tank that I have in my garage, apart from artillery. Like I said, I've started loading some high explosive rounds. Just because of the ridiculous load time, I've only got 2 rounds of high explosive, but bear in mind, if you manage to hit a weakly armoured target with this high explosive, they are going to feel it, and they are going to know that you've just shot them with high explosive. It's also quite good for resetting caps. I've gone for a large caliber tank gun rammer. Now I haven't actually got much else. I am thinking of getting an enhanced gun laying drive. I wouldn't bother putting a camouflage net on this, or training your crew with camouflage, mostly because doing that is like trying to hide a fucking building. It's like you're getting, you go to your printer, print out like a crappy little camouflage scheme onto some A4 piece of paper and then putting it on top of your house and saying, boom, that's camouflage. That's kind of like what you're doing with this thing. Of course, if you know how spotting mechanics work, you can sit far behind bushes, and if you do like to play this stealthily and you do train your crew with 100% crew or 100% camouflage, put a camouflage net on and all sorts of good stuff, and you like to play your tank stealthily and you know how to do it effectively, by all means do so. All I'm saying is I wouldn't really recommend it, mostly because you're trying to hide a house. And unless you have a very, very big camouflage net and invisible paint, then you're not going to be able to do it. So yeah, so I'm thinking of getting enhanced gun lane drive, and then I don't tend to stay still too much with my tank destroyer, so maybe either coated optics or improved vents. Super heavy spore liner probably isn't that bad of an idea. Artillery does like to shoot me regardless of what tier I'm playing, so maybe a spore liner on all of my tanks would help, but you know, a super heavy spore liner wouldn't be a bad idea for this tank, because if people start shooting high explosive at you, then you just troll them even more because they're not doing anything. So yeah, I've gone with Brothers in Arms for my first skill. Now this was a crew that I had beforehand. I already had this crew, and they already had one skill trained, so I just retrained them onto this tank and swapped it out for Brothers in Arms. And the reason for that is because now, with 100% Brothers in Arms on all my crew, it reduces the load time, it, you know, increases what camouflage there is on it, you know, it increases view range, it increases all sorts of stuff by, I think, 5%. Yeah, plus 5, I pointed with my finger, wow. Yeah, by 5%, you know, it's 105%, so, yeah. Then I go in with repairs mostly because you don't want to sit tracked in a tank destroyer, no matter what it is, and if you can save yourself using a repair kit, then it certainly helps. And of course, not just your tracks, it helps with damaged guns and, you know, knocked out radios or whatever. But who gives a fuck about your radio, really? It just kind of it helps. Anyway, so I think I've been waffling on for a while now, and I can certainly feel my voice starting to get a bit dry. So we're going to go straight into the replay, and this is an absolute cracker of a replay where I did quite a lot of damage. So, this is a tier 10 game I had a few days ago on Bruenberg in the mighty Rape Panzer. Oops. So it's not a massively tier 10 game. There's only 4 tier 10s per team and only a few tier 9s. I think both teams only have 3 tier 9s. The rest is tier 8. So you could argue that it's overpowered, and you could argue that I'm in a very ridiculous tank for this kind of game. Nevertheless, you know, whatever. So I decided to head down the 6th column to begin with, and take up a bit of a, I don't know, questionable position given the matchmaker. And, you know, this is the, you know, 50% chance to win. It could go either way, according to XVM. I suppose there's a balance of good and bad players. So there's not terribly... Nobody here really seems to have a particular advantage. I mean, I suppose you could argue they've got the faster tanks, well, a few of the faster tanks at tier 10. You know, me being in a Jg.Pz E-100, a T-57 heavy, and the I-7 and T-175 aren't particularly slow, but, you know, not particularly speed demons either. So I'm taking it a bit cautiously here, because I am mindful that there is artillery, and artillery likes to shoot me. And there tends to be some sort of arseholes that tend to come up here. Now, really, I'm hoping and waiting for the people that are going down south and then up over to the, I don't want to sound like an idiot here, up to the east. So I see this M103, and there we go, 1,125 straight away. That was a bit of a clutch shot, I think, because it wasn't fully aimed, and I just stopped moving as well. And now you can just see this absolutely monstrous reload time. I think with the setup that I've got, it's about 21 seconds, I think. So after every shot you do have to wait 21 seconds. I mean, it could go down even further if I put vents on, but, you know. So it doesn't look like a terribly large amount has actually come down this way in terms of, you know, tier 10s. It looks like they've all hammered it off into the town, and you can definitely see that, and it's definitely evident. So I'm just kind of poking up around here, make sure nobody's got my flank really, because my intention is to poke round into the town and, you know, add down kind of like the F column. So after sort of in my mind thinking it's clear, and having the security of those 3 heavies and a tank destroyer going down on the east, I move around here, and oh yes, the back end of an E-100. This is a very juicy shot indeed. So I'm just kind of aiming, and that's another 1,170 damage. So far, from 2 shots, I've done 2,295 damage. Now, there is that M103 that I shot behind, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem for those guys. Amazingly, this ISU manages to bounce 2 shots. No idea what from, but, you know, talk about luck, eh? So, I see the E-100 again. I want to shoot the ISU, or no, Rheinmetall Borsig, but then I think, no, we'll go for the E-100. He is the bigger target, bigger threat. And to be honest, I think what I did there was what a lot of people don't actually do. They see an easy kill, or they see someone who's a tier lower, you know, easily penetrable, and they go for them. And I'm usually on the receiving end of that, and it really pisses me off. But I do get to shoot the Rheinmetall Borsig in the end, and do 1,048 damage to him. And I see this IS-3 is now on my right, on my flank, and I don't want it to give him my flank. And then artillery hits me, like a little bastard. He seems to just set me on fire without damaging any critical modules. So there's that IS-3. I thought I might have been able to pull off a shot onto him. But I don't think I actually take any shots this game, other than that one from the artillery, and the ones that do shoot at me. And it's a Ferdinand with a side to me. I'll take that one, thank you. 907 damage. Now, the kills that I'm getting so far, they've all been around 1,000 damage, near enough, this game, and these are kills that you just wouldn't have been able to pull off. Now, I'm trying to wiggle my armour here, give this AMX 5120 a hard time to penetrate. He does end up planting one. I think it goes straight into my lower plate if I take a look. Yeah, straight into my lower plate. But, you know, I was in a bit of an open position, and I don't know, I maybe could have done a bit more, but I'm trying to side scrape in a tank destroyer here, but no, that E-100 is not worth the kill anymore. I'll just let the 2 tier 10s and tier 9 just chew him up. Then I think about it, and nah. And then I see the 5100 and 2,063 damage to him as well. So I've fired 6 shots this game, all of them doing around 1,000 damage, so I've already done 6,350 damage this game. Which is absolutely ridiculous, and you're just this is why people fear this tank when they see it pop up on the minimap. This is why people get so scared of it. And now I'm just looking at this T32 and put one into him doing 771 damage. I suppose you could argue that was a bit of a SEAL Club moment, but nah, it was all good fun really. So I'm going on here looking for the 50B, just, you know, making sure it's clear, but he turns up in base. Now at the moment I'm thinking, I wonder how much more damage I could do this game. I mean, as you can see, as you've seen, it does tend to sometimes roll low, this gun. Sometimes, I mean, the highest I think I've ever seen is 1,217 before, from one shot. And I think the lowest I've ever seen is about 800, which really pissed me off, because yeah, it's this gun, like I said, trolls me just as much as I can troll other people. But like I said, this is exactly why people fear this tank, just because of the sheer amount of damage that it can do, the sheer amount of devastation it can cause, and just mentally traumatizes everybody and everyone and everybody that sits in front of the gun for too long, or is stupid enough to sit in front of the gun for too long. And this IS-3 is just, he's run out of friends. So 1,031 damage and bring his life to a swift end. That was an 8,152 damage game in the Jg.Pz E-100. Now I do have this up on What Replay, so I will give you a quick post-game statistics on it. But that was just really showcasing what the Jg.Pz E-100 is famous for just punishing people who sit in front of their gun, or punishing people that just don't comprehend. I mean, a while ago, me and Ben, we set up a trap. It was everyone lemming trained down one flank, so he got into a hull down position, and I hid just a bit further back. I think it was an M48 or an M46 Patton, drives out in front to try and rush Ben. Of course he doesn't see me. I plant 1,000 damage into his side, so he pulls back. And Ben's, of course, hull down, so they're not penetrating his turret, and he's keeping them all spotted, so I know that there's an IS-3 and some other tanks there. So he plants a shot into the Patton, so now the Patton's on something like, I don't know, 200 or 300 hit points. The thing that really got me confused is why then, literally right after that, an IS-3, after watching an M46 Patton lose nearly all of his hit points, decides, oh, I'm going to, I'm clearly impervious to the 170mm death shell of that Jg.Panzer E-100 on the corner. I'm going to drive out and try my luck against this other tier 10. He met a similar fate. So yeah, it's a fun tank to drive, but just be aware that you will have those games where you just want to smash your computer because of shots that should have penetrated or shots that should have hit. So yeah.